This is the walkthrough video for PCTC 2023, round 2, question 7, the matrix. Okay, so essentially, we're given two matrices and we want to multiply them together. If you've covered this in maths, then obviously you know how this works. If not, then it can be quite confusing to read through, but I won't cover it here because it is quite confusing. But once you understand it, then we can get straight into the coding. So first thing to do is let's take in our two matrix inputs. And so let's just call them matrix 1 and matrix 2. And I'm going to say for I in range 3, because there are 3 rows in each matrix, I'm going to add the input to M1, but instead of just inputting this is a string, I'm going to evaluate it. So eval. And what eval will do is it will almost like turn it into a list. So for example, if I were to print M1, and let's just do that and run the code, we should basically see the matrix in like list format. Yeah, here you go. So eval turns it into a tuple, and then we add that to the list. And so let's just repeat that code again here, and just reiterate the benefit of doing this is that it means you don't have to bother processing all of the numbers and then appending each number separately to our row and then to our overall matrix. This is just a nice clean way of doing it. Okay, so we've got two matrices. Now let's do the multiplication. So we need to create a new matrix. Let's call that answer. And this is where we're going to insert the correct value for each of the 9 cells or each of the 9 coordinates. And so let's actually do that now. So for, let's see, what letters do they use in the question? Because then that should make it easier for us. The ith row and the jth column. Okay, so that's going to be for I in range 3 and for j in range 3. And so we're just going to, what we're doing now is we're just going to go through each of the 9 cells in our brand new matrix and do something with them. And so for each row we go through, let's just create a new row list, and then we'll keep appending something to our row list, which will just be the correct number at that point. And then after we've appended all 3 numbers to our row, then we can just append row to our answer matrix. Okay, so now this is the really difficult bit. What on earth are we appending to a position in our row? So what does it say we need to do? It says we need to go through each of the rows. So we need to go through the row of matrix 1 and a column of matrix 2, which correspond to the ith and jth row and column respectively. And we need to kind of mash them together. And so in Python, the command that we use to do that is called zip. So zip will take in 2 iterables, and it will kind of merge the 2 iterables together. And so what are the 2 iterables we want? Well, as we said, we want the ith row of matrix A. So that's going to be M1I, and the jth column of matrix B. And so that's going to be some complicated thing. But to make it easier, let's actually transpose matrix B or matrix 2 like that. Yeah. So what we've done for matrix 2 is we've swapped over the rows and the columns in matrix 2, which means if we want to refer to a column, we just refer to it as if it were a row because we've swapped them over. And that just makes essentially this line of code way easier because it means we're just referencing a column as opposed to, we're just referencing an index of the outer list as opposed to having to extract the specific index of each row. So yeah, if you ever want to reference a column pretty easily in Python, just transpose your matrix and then you can treat it as a row because you've just swapped the columns and rows. Okay, so now we're going through each of our rows and columns, and we now need to take our 2 numbers. So we have one for matrix 1, one for matrix 2, and we need to multiply them together. So to do that, let's do the map command. And what the map command does is it takes 2 things. The second thing it takes is like the list or the iterable of the numbers that you're dealing with or the things that you're dealing with. And the first thing it takes, the first parameter it takes is the function that we're applying to those numbers. So what's zip? Like the output of this is pretty much like it's going to be like a tuple, for example, is going to be like that or whatever, where the first number is the row from matrix 1 and the second number is the number from the column in matrix 2. And so we now need to apply a function to each of these individual tuples that contain 2 elements. And what's our function going to be? So to make a one-line function in Python, we just use this thing called lambda. And let's just call it, what do we call this? Let's call this pair. And for each pair, we want to multiply the 0th element with the first element. So all we're literally doing here is we're taking in each of these tuples and we're just multiplying the first one with the second element. And that's what our map function does. And so map will now return an iterable that contains the multiplied value of the ith row in the jth column, and then of the first element in the ith row in jth column, then the second element in the ith row in jth column, and then the third element in the ith row in jth column. And so what do we need to do with that? Well, we need to calculate the sum of that, and then we're going to add that sum to the answer matrix. So to calculate the sum, this is where we can just use the basic Python sum command. And finally, we just add that to our row, as we've already written the code for, and add that row to our final answer. So this line of code, it's pretty humongous, and it can seem confusing, right? We're dealing with zips, we're dealing with a lambda function, we're dealing with a map, and then we're doing sum and append all in one line. But this entire one line essentially just deals with this line of code, right? Or this line of maths. That entire one line just does this. And it does it in like quite a nice clean way. And so once we've added that row and we've added 3 rows, so this for loop's done, then let's print off the answer matrix, and that's just going to be for I in answer. Let's print everything in answer, everything in I, sorry, and there should be a separation of a comma because that's the format they asked for up here. I mean, of course, if you had the Python library numpy or numpy, then this would be way easier. But we know we don't have that, and they even specifically say you can only use built-in modules in Python or your coding languages, and numpy is not a built-in module, so we can't do that. And so we have to kind of do this a bit more manually, which is why it's quite relatively complicated.